talking today about the ancient wisdom insofar it relates to the founding of our country. A lot of people don't realize that we were prophesized in the ancient wisdom teachings all the way back to the ancient wisdom schools of Egypt and the masters of wisdom. And if I do, one of the things I know, this is new material to a lot of people, if I say a term that you're not familiar with, please, this is a small group, it's a discussion group, this is not a Sunday service. So if anyone has anything to add, or if they have anything they need to understand a little bit more, please don't be shy. One of the things that a lot of people have been concerned with lately is what's happening in the world. And I'm not going to say just in one country, I'm saying in the world, because there is a fair amount of chaos going on. And it's because it's supposed to be. Everything is in divine order. And right now, the shadow is coming through so that, so I want to start with a quote from somebody and then I want to see if you know who it might be. Okay. We are witnessing in our day the birth of a new age with a new structure of freedom and justice. Now, as we face the fact of this new emerging world, we must face the responsibilities that come along with it. A new age brings with it new challenges. First, we are challenged to rise above the narrow confines of our individualistic concerns, the broader concerns of all humanity. The new world is a world of geographical togetherness. This means that no individual or nation can live alone. We must all learn to live together, or we will be forced to die together. Through our scientific genius, we have made of the world a neighborhood. Now, through our moral and spiritual genius, we must make of it a brotherhood. We are all involved in this single process. Whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly. We are all links in the great chain of humanity. We have before us the glorious opportunity to inject a new dimension of love into our veins of civilization. Martin Luther King.
Wow.
Wow. I bet you thought it was going to be one of the ancient masters. He is a master. He is a master. So when we look at the fact that great ones since the dawn of time have been telling us that we must change and we must be one. The United States of America was founded on those principles of oneness. Those words are so beautiful. Our country, as I said, was founded on the notion that all men are created equal. The very notion of these principles, this is the first principle that we were founded on, that all men are created equal before God and should be treated that way with the equality of rights and opportunities given to us by God, and that is how the American government should treat everyone. It was one of the founding principles of this country. On the day that the Declaration of Independence was signed, John Adams, our second president, a Mason, asked that we revisit the principles upon which the United States of America was founded. And one of those, the second principle, is e pluribus unum. It signifies an issue today more than ever. It is the idea that we should be and would be, as we were founded, a diverse group. There would be many religions, as depicted by that. There would be many ethnicities. Thank you. There would be a great diversity of expression. There would be many, and out of the many would grow the one. These are the roots of which we were founded. I was talking about John Adams. John Adams' family were members of a sect of English Druids called the Dragon Sect, who left England to escape persecution. The dragons included someone that you may have heard of called Sir Walter Raleigh, right? Also part of the dragons later was Sir Francis Drake. The dragons sought to revive the ancient wisdom and the way of living more in harmony with the earth. And so they came to a new world that had been predicted to be the place where the next age would begin. Now let me explain something about America. There's North and South America. So even though I'm talking about the founding of the United States, just as a sidebar here, there's a lot of going on in South America right now when it comes to the wisdom teachings, and great teachers have emerged. One of them is a man named Jose Trigueño, who is, I think in Brazil. He's actually been identified as updating the message of the wisdom teachings from one of the wisdom teachers that wrote a lot of books called Alice Bailey. So he is doing that work in South America. Has anyone heard of Jose? What's his name? Jose Trigueño. A big influence on this country in its beginnings with wisdom teachings was Sir Francis Bacon. He actually wrote a novel called The New Atlantis, and in it was talking about a mythical place that he later identified as America, as the place that would be e pluribus unum, all for one. He also talked about the idea that the Great Seal would be depicting the ancient wisdom teachings. Some of the wisdom teachings came from the old world to the new world via Francis Bacon. He was asked by the then king, which was George, I think? George, to rewrite the Bible. By the time he had rewritten the Bible to bring it here, it was under King James. And so it took him a while to rewrite this Bible. But what he did, because he was a Mason of high degree, he knew the mystery teachings, and he encoded the mystery teachings into the King James Version of the Bible. This is why the Catholic Church literally forbade people to read the King James Version of the Bible. We were not allowed, I was a Catholic, I know this to be true. We had the Catholic version of the Bible, and that was all we were to read. Now, Francis Bacon envisioned an ideal society which he hoped would develop here in America. What he taught people, being a Mason, he also taught and conversed with spirits. We could say he channeled some of the high consciousness of the masters. Please jump in here if you have anything to add about Francis Bacon.
I'm avidly listening.
So one of the things that they told him were that this country was to be founded on divine principles of freedom and equality. And it would be the first time anywhere in the world that a whole nation would be founded under these principles. Most Americans have little awareness of the major role he played in preparing the soil of this new America. One of the things that many of you have probably heard is our founding fathers had some help signing the Declaration of Independence. Has anyone ever heard of the Master Saint Germain? He has been called the Master of the Seventh Ray, or the Master of the Violet Flame. He was in Bali during the court of Louis XV when the French Revolution happened. He was a mystic and teacher even then. When this country came to be formed, he was very much involved with the formation of this country. During the evening of the signing of the Declaration of Independence, there was quite a lot of trepidation among the founding fathers. Do we sign this? Do we not? Do we do this? And a mysterious figure appeared up in the balcony of Freedom Hall, that we call it Freedom Hall now. And he gave an inspiring speech that we must sign this, that this was a new world, and it was the destiny of those men to sign this. And at the end of this rousing speech, he said, "Sign, for God's sake, sign." And John Hancock immediately, that's Saint Germain, signed his name very large. And they looked back to thank the stranger, and he had gone. Now, they were in locked doors. There was nobody that could have come in or out without being seen. Now, if anyone knows anything about the Masters of Wisdom, they can they go at such a high vibration, they can literally materialize a body and dematerialize a body. So he could have gone in and out very easily. This great one was this is in the history books, that there was somebody that gave this speech and then they looked around and he was gone. All right? It's part of the hidden process of how America was founded. Was we've been under the guidance of great masters of wisdom since before we were here. According to historian Bernard Fay, Masonry alone undertook to lay the foundation of the national unity of America. The Masons at the time, Paul Revere was a Mason, George Washington was a Mason, 51 of the signers of the Declaration of Independence were Masons of high degree. They would have known that there was a mystical reason for this country to be founded. One of the things I want to make you aware of is that I always look at both sides of something. I wanted to see what people say about the Masonic. Some people today, there are lots of YouTube documentaries that we have let ourselves be taken over by the devil because we're being orchestrated with all these Masonic symbols and stuff. Don't allow any type of fear to enter your mind when it comes to the wisdom teachings. Of course, that is people taking power back. A lot of fundamentalist organizations of any kind, it doesn't mean just a religion, it can mean a government agency, it can mean a country. If anyone is trying to keep you under their control, they're going to try to instill fear in you. So a lot of this, you have to just breathe into it and know that, yes, of course, what we call God is an energetic that is within everyone. Some people are very in tune with that energy, and they can bring forth a piece of that energy that is theirs to bring forth. It may be like Susan brings forth a piece of that energy we call God with her astrology readings. I may bring it forth when I'm doing a healing or when I'm teaching. Lauren may bring it forth when she's doing her nursing and her healing and her nutrition consulting. So all of us have a piece of God within us. And the idea that the United States of America is to bring all those pieces of God together without fear of being persecuted. And so when we look at anything that brings our energy down to our solar plexus and into fear, we immediately have to realize that that is illusion and that is not truth. We bring it up, breathe into it, and ask to see the truth behind the fear. Does this make sense? Okay. So one of the first things I check when I get into an emotional state is, where in my body am I feeling it? If I'm feeling it here, then I know that I need to lift it to my heart, which is a softer, higher energy. Okay? And then a lot of times, we also are like 3-year-olds who want to know why. Why? Why is this happening? Let go of why. Let go of why and know that there is divine order. And all is well. There are great ones guiding our society, guiding our world. We talked last time, these are called the Masters of Wisdom. They've been called by many names. Another one is the Great White Brotherhood. It has nothing to do, white is the light that they hold inside of them. And you will hear the Great White Brotherhood. Don't think that it has anything to do with anything that has to do with physicality. When we talk about the Masters of Wisdom, it's about the energy of their consciousness. They hold a high degree of white light. Has anyone heard that the Great White Brotherhood? So,
how did they get to become masters?
they, just like all of us, they strove over lifetimes and lifetimes to develop their spiritual perfection. And then at some point, they reached a level of consciousness that there's, and we're going to be talking about initiations one of these Sundays as well. But they went through, and the first initiation is when you have control over the physical body. And that can take thousands of lifetimes to accomplish that first one. They've reached 7 levels of initiation, some of them 5. And I say 7 because there are masters that have reached this cosmic level of initiation and are still choosing to be here on the earth plane and work for us, with us, through this next evolution. So one of the ideas is we are all on the road to mastership. Each of us is a master in the making. One of the things that I've talked about before is the fact that if someone tells you they're a master, they are not. If you meet the Buddha on the road, kill it. Because the masters never say they are. That is ego. And the masters are beyond ego. The masters hold wisdom of a certain area. Like the Master Saint Germain is over ritual and what is called white magic and the violet flame. He's over governments right now, whereas governments in general have been under the auspices of who is called the Master Moria. There are 7 masters that deal with 7 parts of humanity. It's sort of like when you pray to a guide, you would say, I would know more or be more in alignment with the ashram of Master Saint Germain. That's one of the ashrams I work with, but I would never presume that he was speaking to me directly. He has other things, but there are other adepts and chelas and disciples under him that might work with me or through me, might work with you or through you. Again, if someone says they're channeling a master, a lot of people are saying they're channeling Jesus or Mary. Get your discernment detector out and make sure that you look at why do they have to have a name? Why can't they just own it? Like if I'm getting information that might be new to me, I would just say thank you, hopefully it's from my higher self. And so this is one of the things to be very careful about when we're looking at some information that's out there right now. We talked a little bit about this last time as well. But the thing is, the Masons were the only group in America that were highly organized enough to plan the revolution. They were because, you know, and they had this network of people that reached from the old world to the new. And so part of the revolution was to break through the crystallization and to stand for the purity of what they wanted to have as a nation. So by the oath of the secrecy of the lodges, now think about this. If 51 of our forefathers that signed the Declaration of Independence were Masons, they're not going to, they were kind of spies as well. They weren't going to go out there and tell King George, hey, I'm a Mason, we're going to do this revolution. They had to work energetically as well. So remember that anytime we talk about the wisdom teachings, it always pairs and partners with work on the inner planes, or what's called the subjective level of consciousness. So it happens in the subjective level. I'm sure they meditated a lot because they wanted to be in alignment with the divine plan and purpose of this country. Just like we meditate a lot because we're getting ready to teach these wisdoms I never not meditate before I do a class or a service, because I want to make sure that my ego is as much out of the way as it can be, even though I'm a sensitive old cancer, and I take everything personally, and so does this one, right? She's a cancer too, but we're cancers, and so is Lindsay. Hi, Lindsay.
Hi.
And so what we want to do, though, is at least always allow ourselves to put ourselves in posture and surrender to the higher will of our soul purpose. And the very fact that you're in this room and in this country means that your soul purpose is aligned with the soul purpose of the United States of America. There are no coincidences. You're Americans, whether you're here, whether you were born here or not. I'm second generation on one side and third generation on another. So my family were immigrants, Italian and Hungarians. They came here, through Ellis Island. So that's one of the things we always have to remember. And one of my teachers, named Carolyn Mace, you may have heard of her, she taught us to always pull back and look at the big picture. Whatever you're going through individually is reflecting of some other energy that you're a part of. So pull back and see what's happening. I'm getting, and it's the archetype, because you all have many levels of connection to everything that your life touches. Starting with your gender, your race, the country you live in, your occupation, the city you live in, all of these things. So the oath of secrecy in those lodges was dedicated to the principles of liberty, equality, and fraternity. The very foundation of what this country was. So what we were established as was very Masonic in its. Jefferson, Washington, Franklin were also all high degree, I think 33rd degree Masons. Ben Franklin was Provincial Grand Master of the Philadelphia Masonic Lodge and assisted in the initiation of Voltaire into the Lodge of the Nine Sisters in Paris, the lodge where Jefferson was also said to be initiated. There have been many of our American presidents and government officials since the beginning of our country that were Masons. Yes?
Do you know who the original founders of the Masons were, and do you know when it started the energy started to shift into a darker energy?
It hasn't shifted to a darker energy, not at the high levels. The Illuminati claim to be Masons. That's a darker energy, but it's not. The Masonic Lodge at the higher levels are still very pure. Remember that there are degrees and they're secret. So the light workers are always behind the scenes, and they will always be there. Those that claim to be masters, the energy can shift, but the power that they have over the lower part of it is going to be dissipated by the light eventually.
I believe that, but I can also feel that there is a strong shift in that fraternity that has happened, not by any propaganda I've heard, but just from on an energetic level.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, from the highest level, it may still be with the light, but I'm wondering when that started to get corrupted, and that apparently learned as they get it.
It has to do a lot with the Illuminati that came out of that. That when people are given power, and they begin to see that they have power and they can abuse it and misuse it. So when money got involved, the Rothschilds, the banking part of it, when money gets involved and power gets involved, it becomes corrupted. Okay? But trust me, the wisdom teaching, or the masters of wisdom, will not let that take control of the higher echelon. It can't, because they're grounded in materiality. Yes?
I would like to make one point about the masters of wisdom.
Yes.
Now they were ordinary people just like us.
Mm-hmm.
But at this point, they're at a higher level of evolution. I'm saying this to say that one day we could be masters of wisdom.
And that's what our path is. I mean, I think that's the whole idea. And the other thing that I was reminded as you were speaking is the masters of wisdom also don't interfere with man's free will. So if things are getting messed up, it's up to mankind to change it. Not the masters aren't going to beam us up. They're not going to save us, okay? They are there for guidance and to give us energy and direction, but they cannot make us do anything. If they did, they weren't masters. They're the dark forces. They're the dark side of the force. There's one force. But through ego, intent, motivation, it's either the light forces or the dark forces. So the Masonic Lodge can be abused as well. And it depends on the motivation and intent. So and we're going to talk about this in our meditation. It's going to be going into a higher consciousness and shining light on things. But anyway, let me go forward here. So I wanted to get into next. We already talked about that. This is what I want to get into. So there are two parts up here that you may not know again. But to get an indication, that you may not know that they were done at two different times in our history. Did you know that the seal, the pyramid with the all-seeing eye was not put on our currency until 1935? Okay, so let's go back forward though. Let's go back to get an indication of the spiritual and mystic awareness of our founders. Okay. First of all, the first Congress appointed Thomas Jefferson, John Adams, and Ben Franklin to design the seal, the one with the eagle, and major revisions were added by Charles Thomson and William Barton. The symbolism of both sides of the seal is powerful and is the microcosm of our nation, a reflection of the spirit of America. The eagle on the front side represents spiritual vision, as the eagle is the only creature which looks directly into the sun. The eagle was also sacred to the Native Americans as a messenger of the Great Spirit. The eagle depicted here is the bald eagle, symbolizing the top of the head being open, crown chakra, to receive the spirit. Just like the monks in the Middle Ages shaved the top of their heads for the same reason, right? The eagle on the seal holds both arrows and olive branch in its talons, but he faces the olive branch, breaking with traditional heraldry, which usually had the characters facing to the left, not the right. And what's the olive branch represent? Peace. E pluribus unum, out of many the one, represents, as we've talked about, not only the unified states of one government, but more profoundly, the one life, the divine presence, which pervades all life and creates unity in diversity. The reverse of the seal displays the all-seeing eye of God, long used as a symbol of the brotherhood of Freemasonry. This eye of God, or the eye of Horus, or the all-seeing eye, has been a mystical symbol since the dawn of time. And let me just go back a little bit to that dawn of time. Moses, as a prince of Egypt, would have been educated in the mystical path of the Egyptian books of the dead. He would have been educated as a priest because he was going to be Pharaoh. So the Egyptian mystery school can be traced not only to him, but before him. But that's one of the influences that great all-seeing eye. Of course, the pyramid, that was from Egypt too. This is an important key to solving our national problems right now. It suggests that without divine guidance, we lose our vision. And we are lost in materialistic endeavors, struggling an uphill battle. So this idea of one nation under God, it goes beyond the concept of what God has become to a much bigger, broader creation universe, creation energy. All right. So the idea of the Egyptian mystery schools, I want to talk to you a little bit about Sirius, the sun behind the sun. Now, there is a legend of which I'm very well aware and have experienced for myself, and it's in the Bible, about great beings coming to the planet when humanity was of a level of consciousness where they were ready to receive the wisdom teachings. These great beings came from Sirius. Sirius is actually also, isn't it the star of Bethlehem? When the great one was to come to give us the next message that we were ready for. But in the beginning, the Syrians came, and it is said that they came from the blue planet. And the idea of the blue planet is that it was a planet of water. So there is this idea that once the beings came from Sirius, they came into the water first. And at some point when they were ready to be part of humanity's evolution, some of them returned to the water and became what are now the dolphins. Some of them decided to come up and be part of the human race, and and had feet, as they were no longer half fish and man, but they became fully man. And this is where the legend of the Little Mermaid comes from. This is when the great ones from Sirius decided they were going to stay here, be a part of the human evolution. But in the Bible, it talked about when the gods came and walked among men. This is what this is about. They then decided to quit being observing and come up and walk among men. They were giants. Some of these were giants. There were beings from many planets that came forth. The reason I bring up Sirius right now is the ageless wisdom teaches that Sirius radiates the qualities of universal love and intuition. When I say radiates, it is called the sun behind the sun. First of all, it's way bigger than our sun. And you can only see it as it comes into orbit at certain times of the year. Every being, every planet is actually a consciousness of many beings that have evolved past the need for, say, a human form. And they've come together as one energetically and have ensouled a planet or a star or a universe. Everything that we see around us is ensouled with some level of entity. All right? Sirius is a very high level of entity, which has beings of light, which went out into the universe to seed the knowledge and wisdom teachings to those planetary systems that were ready to receive it. So we had come to a point of our own consciousness that we were ready to receive these teachings. So what happens is this energy comes from the planet and the beings on it, and it goes out like a wave of energy, and it gets dissipated or dispersed into a system. So that energy of Sirius is always shining forth and coming towards where it's influencing. It comes through our sun, and our sun disperses it again into the 7 rays. And those hit our planet at certain times of the year through some of the astrology signs, correct? Now, so it radiates the qualities of universal love and intuition. It functions as part of a vast cosmic heart center. It is a heart center of the cosmos that we are a part of. It is linked with universal and cosmic principles such as the law of karma and the law of periodicity. Periodicity. What does that mean? It means that as cycles go, great ones come when more information is ready to be received. All right? So right now, a lot of Christians are waiting for the second coming. The second coming of what? They're looking for the Master, Jesus. But the Master, Jesus, has already gone and accomplished what he was to accomplish. We're into the beginning of the age of Aquarius. There may be another master that comes forth in the wisdom teachings. It's called Maitreya. It will have the title of Maitreya. Not of the Christ. The Christ was here, brought us the message, and now there's another cycle waiting to come. But there also, because we're in the beginning of the Aquarian age, Aquarian energy is about group work. So a lot of us are awakening to our own Christ itself, the fact that we hold the love and the wisdom.
Aquarius is also the sign of the humanitarian, and it is universal. Our country has a birth chart, and in the astrology chart of the USA, our moon is in Aquarius, which embodies the principles of brotherhood, equality, justice, all the things that are so ingrained. In every age, astrologically, an age is about 2,000 years, and there's an avatar for each age. And Jesus, who became Christ, was the avatar for the age of Pisces. And as we move into the age of Aquarius, we are moving away from our personal development, spirituality, consciousness, into an awareness of universal principles, universal consciousness, that we are all one, all energy is one. And that's part of the Aquarian principles. It is also an air sign, and as such, we are moving away from embodying everything in our heart and our feelings, and we are moving into communication through the mind. So we are moving into communicating telepathically, which takes us into instant manifestation. And as we move more and more into the age of Aquarius, we're going to see this in our personal life, and we're going to see it creep up into professional, political, economic areas of the world.
Yes. Yes.
Is this why I'm losing my words?
We were talking about this. Is this why, as she's aging, she's losing her words? And we've talked about.
I would probably, I probably need to see your chart to make that connection. But there are many times that we are unconsciously communicating on other levels and don't know it. And so certainly there could be some of that going on.
I'm wondering about that.
Well, I've noticed that as well. I mean, a lot of times I'll lose a word, and on Sunday mornings, people will say from the congregation, this is what you. Oh, yeah, that was the word I was looking for. Thank you so much. You know, and I noticed that because I'm up here getting information or trying to process information, and sometimes a word slips. And I've been thinking a lot about that too, because we are realizing an uptake in mind-related issues in the world right now. And I don't want to even give it a name, but that's a very good insight. Very good insight. Yes.
I have a friend in Atlanta who runs a spiritual center, and it's a holistic spiritual center. And I was talking with him a couple of weeks ago, and he was saying that the profit that everybody is expecting is not actually going to be a single entity of any kind. It's a collective. So the next profit is going to be a collective awareness. We are all part of that profit. And I heard that and I thought, that is the most interesting concept.
Well, and it says that in the wisdom teachings. It says that we will know the Christ, or the next one, when it comes, because we will all be telepathically connected. And we will know that. And it also says in the wisdom teachings that when humanity develops it says mechanical means, but we were thinking about maybe the computer. When we develop the ability to instantaneously communicate through mechanical means, the entire planet will become telepathic. We are almost there.
I will interject and say that I belong to an Aries study group for many years, formed by Edgar Casey, who was the seer that lived in the 1920s when I would go there. But somebody asked him once, how do I become telepathic with so-and-so, who was his spouse? And Casey said, if the two of you would meditate together every day for 15 days at the same time, you would become telepathically linked and connected. And our group decided to try this. And we teamed up, and we each each team pick their time, and for 15 days we're going to do it. And you will be amazed at how difficult it is to carry this through for 15 days, because we are busy and we forget and things are going on and we get interrupted. And we came back the next week and not one of our teams have been able to carry this through for 15 days. And then once, probably I guess it's about 15 years ago now, a friend in Virginia and I decided to try the same experiment. He lived in Virginia and I lived in Atlanta at the time, and we picked our time and we said every day, every evening at 10 o'clock we were going to meditate together. And we did it. And after the third day, I could tell if he was there or not. I could also tell if he came in late, because I could feel the shift in the energy. There were a few times we had the same experiences in meditation at the same time. We were only meditating for 15 or 20 minutes. We would finish the meditation and the phone would ring. And you'd go, what the hell was that? You saw that too. We actually carried this through for the entire 15 days. That was at least 12 to 15 years ago, and we are still telepathically connected. So to this day, I will know when something is wrong with him. I will know when I need to call him. I will know when this or that is happening, and the same goes for him. We are not carrying on a mental conversation. Hi, how are you? I am fine. How are you? It's not like that, but there is a connection and there is a knowingness that sort of almost transcends verbal language. So if you can do it, I would suggest trying that experiment, but I will also let you know it is not as easy as it sounds.
A new twist on having a prayer partner.
There's Edgar Casey.
Yeah. We did this at the Monroe Institute as well when I was taking hemisync training, and that it is amazing. My partner is up in Canada. So also just to get through with Sirius, it's the great star of initiation, the origin of the hierarchy. Now I say that insofar as going back to the Bible. It's when the great ones came originally. And so I see that, and if someone else has another take on it, as the original hierarchy, because the hierarchy, I'm sure those ones that came all those millions of years ago have gone now. They're probably formed a planet somewhere. But, and it's also the home of the Masonic tradition. It manifests in the earth as principles of freedom. It reveals the distinction between good and evil through divine, discriminating conscience, what we've been talking about. It enhances the servers, which means us, not the computer server, ability to cooperate with hierarchy and the plan, and it acts through an intricate system of astrological intermediaries. Astrological intermediaries means your sign, the sign of the time. Now, modern day mystics and masons who change the world by their knowledge of the ancient wisdom is what I'm going to talk about next. Because there is a great one who I didn't know him because he was already passed, but there is someone, I want to talk about this. And this is where another reason. July 4th, Sirius, July 4th, Sirius aligns with Washington, D.C. from the, what's that called? Monument. Washington Monument to the White House and the Capitol. There is a line when it hits the apex in the sky, Sirius, line of light, straight down. Every year. That's why July 4th was picked as our day of independence, was to align with the forces of Sirius. Remember the first the slide before this, I showed you the pyramids. Right. It also aligns with the pyramids. That line of force, that line of light. So, guys, these are the unknown reasons. This is the energy. Now, let me tell you another thing about that energy of light. There is a corner here in Charlotte, North Carolina, called Trade and Tryon. Mm-hmm. There is an energetic ley line aligned in that particular corner as well that goes straight to this alignment in Washington, D.C. there is the potentiality in this Scorpio city that we live in to be a great influence in the country and thus the world of bringing in the light of the mystery teachings.
Absolutely. Go ahead.
Two things. One, Charlotte has the largest Masonic temple in all of the U.S.
Really? I did not know that.
Yes, the largest Masonic temple is here.
I thought it was in Philadelphia.
I thought it was in
Cool.
Washington, D.C.
Well, there you go. Well, then.
And it was a Freemason of a higher ranking that told me that.
Mhm.
So I haven't been to it, but that's what I've been told by a higher ranking Freemason. The other thing is, it's so bizarre because like 3 days ago, I was just reading about Trade and Tryon, and what the history of the wards are. And the history of the wards are completely political, right? Because of political influences, and that's why they were created. But Charlotte was built around that intersection of Trade and Tryon because that was like the biggest highways of what was happening. But Charlotte was intentionally developed on the diagonal and does not face north-south.
Right.
It runs along the ley lines of the light. Yeah, so this is like some sort of hub,
Mhm.
you know, yeah.
Now, let me tell you something about that. Because of Scorpio, esoterically or soul-wise, has 3 different levels of its development. We are Scorpio City.
We're Scorpio City, and Scorpio rules banking. And banking and finance are very big in Charlotte. It is a banking center. There is a lot of money in this center, but Scorpio is also a sign of transformation and change.
And as it opens, as the Scorpio opens to its spirituality, the 2nd octave is the symbol of the snake or the Kundalini rising. All right? The 3rd initiatory stage of transformation of Scorpio is the phoenix rising out of its own ashes. So the more we open ourselves to our spiritual purpose, the more we shed light into Charlotte, the more we allow Charlotte its own initiatory path into that transformational energy. That's why I was excited to be talk about this today, because we are also living in a place that can have immense influence if we get together on a regular basis, either individually or collectively, and meditate and go into the light and vision the peace and the love and the transformation. So this is so cool. Go ahead.
You also have to remember that as a Scorpio City, we are a water sign, and therefore we are in harmony with the water sign of the nation, meaning that we can have a huge impact on our nation's future, on our nation's actions, more probably than other cities that might be more in conflict with them. We have an astrology chart, and our nation has an astrology chart. And I wish I brought the chart with me. I just gave a talk on this a couple of weeks ago about what's coming up for our nation by looking at our nation's chart. And July 4th was picked very deliberately because they wanted a certain kind of alignment of the planets. And in older times, we had the election for president in November, and the inauguration for president would be in March. And in March, you would have a Pisces energy, and it would create a very beautiful grand trine in water in the chart of the United States, bringing forward an ease of power, wealth, success. In the time of FDR, in one of his terms of office, I think his 2nd inauguration, he decided to change the inauguration date for the President of the United States from March to March 20th. And this set up a dissonance.
Major
January 20th, yeah. This set up a complete conflict in the chart between the inauguration of the President and the chart of the United States. And so it'd be much more difficult, not impossible, but more challenging for our country to prosper, because you don't have that coming together anymore. And since it was done not by executive order, but by amendment to the Constitution, we cannot change it to anything else without another amendment to the Constitution.
So, we should get together and go and say, we've got to change this back energetically, guys. So, but did you have something to say? No, I thought somebody had something to say. I can't really see because I don't have my glasses on. I'm just feeling it. Okay. So, one of the people I wanted to talk about that had an influence around that time is Nicholas Roerich. Has anyone ever heard of Nicholas Roerich? He was a great mystic. His wife, Helena Roerich, brought forth teachings from one of the masters called the Agni Yoga tradition. During the time of Nicholas Roerich, there were 3 women that the masters worked through to bring into modern times the wisdom teachings. Up until this time, the wisdom teachings were very behind the scenes. Even we, when we were studying, had to be invited to be to be a part of a group, and we had to go through all sorts of study and not initiation rites because it wasn't that mysterious, but we had to be approved to study.
In the 80s, you have to remember you couldn't Google, you didn't have the computer, you didn't have your smartphone. You had to know somebody who knew somebody who was part of a group, and you had to be invited. You had to go sort of like on approval to see if you fit in, to see if you were able to handle these kinds of energies, because to whom much is given, much is required, and they were opening doors of power. And you were grateful. You showed up every week, and you showed up on time, and you were there, and you were ready, because to be invited and to be allowed to be part of one of these groups was a big deal. And you didn't talk about it to other people. It's a very private thing. And so nowadays, you see a lot more information dispersed to everybody, but that same information and opportunity we had to go in deeper is
Still
I
not
don't see
out
offered.
there.
It's
Yeah.
still very closed, very private. You have to really seek that out.
And it's not just you go to a service for an hour and that's it, man. You don't do anything else for the rest of the week. See, the disciplines were very real, and our teachers could see whether or not we were doing them or not.
And they were tough.
And they
Let
were
me
tough.
tell you,
And what's interesting is we found out since we've known each other that we had the exact same group of teachers that knew each other, had trained together themselves. And then my teacher founded the seminary that I went to, Carol Parrish, and her teacher, Ben Osborne, was in
He
a
founded another organization in Atlanta. So our teachers trained with the same teacher.
Wow.
So we're sort of like the grandchildren of that teacher. We definitely have come down through the same lineage.
So it was so exciting to us when we figured this out. But the reason I bring up Roerich is because his wife was working with Master M, I think, Moria. And then what was it?
Go ahead.
Yeah, and then Helena Blavatsky brought forth what's become the Theosophical Society, and she was working with Kutumi, right,
Yes.
Master
Yes,
Kutumi,
she works with
and
Kutumi.
Alice Bailey brought forth another stream of information, and she was working with the Master Dwa Kul, who was working with both DK was working with both of them, because he was.
Yes.
Right. So there are 3 streams of wisdom teachings that came through 3 women, and this is the other thing we want to talk about, because the way the wisdom teachings are transferred to you is through the mental body. These 3 women it was a telepathic communication. They were called an amanuensis, which means literally taking dictation. They didn't channel this. It was they just knew it and wrote it down. It's not like giving your body over to an entity. It's not going into trans-channeling. That is still very astrally, emotionally based, and can be influenced by your personality and ego. Pure mental knowing is not as easily manipulated. And the amount they brought through, nobody could make up. I mean, I think there were, how many, 27 Bailey books?
I think there's 25
And then
that she did
with DK.
Wow.
And then Blavatsky, and this I think I may have talked to you about before, but Blavatsky wrote a great work called The Secret Doctrine. And what brought the secret doctrine into prominence for modern people that didn't know about it was when Einstein, who was also a Mason, when Einstein passed away, in his papers was found a much dog-eared, underlined copy of the secret doctrine, and in the margins was written E equals MC squared. He was a student of the wisdom teachings, and that's how he figured out the idea of this wonderful quantum science that we have today. All of whether it's quantum physics or astrology or spiritual practice, it's all in the wisdom teachings. And they are now available, but just like you said, the Masons with the darks, because it's so readily available now, if you get your hands on this and you get it because you want power, or you want to make money, or you want magic, it is going to turn on you eventually from a soul perspective, and or those that come to you will also be harmed in some way. One of the things we were told as students, and then we dare to teach it, is that whatever we teach to someone else, and if we teach it for the wrong reasons, for control, power, whatever, the karma will come back to us if the student does something that's not in alignment with higher purpose, not to them. It is our karma. So every time we teach, we need to make sure that we're not teaching it for self-aggrandizement, we're not teaching it for money, we're not teaching it for power, we're teaching it to impart and to share the wisdom. And that's also something to be aware of with these teachings. There's a lot of stuff on the internet. You can get a lot of power, you can become psychic in a weekend, right? Right? But will it be high information? Will it be truth? Or will it just feed your ego? So that's what, and so the reason I bring him up is because he was actually the guru or the teacher. We're going to use teacher because guru is no longer appropriate in the age of Aquarius. He was actually the teacher of two men, FDR and Henry Wallace, who was the vice president with FDR. Now, it's interesting because I've been thinking about this a lot from the dark side of the Force. They were part of building the League of Nations, but they also were the ones that finished the design of the back of the dollar bill. They actually put that now on the dollar bill. That happened in 1935. So they were instrumental as Masons and as students of Nicholas Roerich to again recognize and realize that this country has a mystical, sacred responsibility to the world. The dollar bill. How many dollar bills exchange hands all over the world? For a long time, the U.S. currency was the preferred exchange in many countries. Now, that happened in 1935. What also happened under their watch was the League of Nations and the United Nations. Both of these under the banner of peace that we see here. This banner of peace was developed by Nicholas Roerich, and he spoke before the League of Nations and the United Nations about how we needed to bring all the world together and be one and help one another and offer aid, and all of this happened under the watch of FDR, but it was behind the scenes, it was the Masonic and spiritual presence of Nicholas Roerich. There's the term that is used in the wisdom teachings, especially by the Master D.K. and Alice Bailey, called the new group of world servers, not to be confused with other terms, which is the New World Order. That's the dark side of the Force. This is the light side of the Force. The new group of world servers means a lot different, has a lot different connotation than the New World Order, which is about power and money. This is about service and humanity and giving. So again, there's a lot of misinformation out there, and those that just have a surface knowledge of the wisdom teachings can be led astray or think that this is the dark side of the force, as opposed to, because it's very similar, okay? And this also is where inner work and inner knowing and meditation is a tool that must be employed if you're on the spiritual path in these times that have so much cacophony of information coming forth. Does that make sense? So,
I'm gonna mention something.
Yes,
That's okay about
please.
meditation, is that when I first started meditating decades ago, I always wanted something to happen. I wasn't too picky, just something happened. And I remember going to class one night, and one of the men there, we were all talking about meditation and our challenges with it. And one of the men said, very, trying to be humble, but at the same time kind of letting everybody know, he said, every day when I meditate, Jesus and Buddha come and have tea with me. And I'll never forget what my teacher said. He looked at me, he said, don't worry, you'll get past that. Because here this guy is, sort of up there, kind of thing. And really what he was doing is meditating at a low level because he wanted sensation. And we are humans, and we are Americans, and we want sensation. And that is actually a very low level of meditation. So when you are meditating and nothing seems to be happening, that is probably a higher level of meditation than bells and whistles and
flash and the dash.
flash and the dash. And
If
so
you hear voices, you're not there yet.
you're not there yet. You may not equate having a solution to a problem come to you on Friday with having meditated on Tuesday and Wednesday. We're a little bit more instant on our connections, but that's what happens. The meditation makes a difference in our life. It does not necessarily show up in the moment of being quiet and still.
And that is so, and that's why we've decided to team together and start teaching classes on it. We're going to, starting in September, I believe.
We're starting in September.
Because it is, we're at a crucial point, plus both of our guides are whoever is saying, get out there and do this, It's not about just Sunday service, you gotta teach. You gotta teach the next gen, So that's very exciting. And as we're winding this up, I wanted to make you aware of another teacher who was also a Mason, Manly P. Hall. I was very fortunate to study with a minister that was the founding minister of Unity of Dallas. His name was Dr. Donald Curtis. He wrote a book called Your Thoughts Can Change Your Life, not to be confused with what Louise Hay did, but this was more of a mystery book about the mind. He studied with Manly P. Hall, and I was privileged to be a part of a group. Again, we had to be interviewed and invited into the group as he was teaching us the wisdom teachings that he received from Manly P. Hall. And I gotta tell you, Dr. Don was real. I mean, if you weren't there on time, if you didn't do your homework, there were people that were rejected from the group because they weren't serious enough. And that's serious, S-E-R-I-O-S. What he was talking about was that political reforms are not accomplished by the people, but through the people. Behind all collective progress stands the enlightened individual's leadership. His superiority does not free him from common responsibility, what you were talking about. It is his obligation to assume the greater burden of directing his vision to the well-being of all his people. People meaning those that are in your sphere of influence. That was from Manly P. Hall. He also wrote a book which a lot of today came from, called The Secret Destiny of America. And what he talks about is America's beginnings as a nation were very radical and innovative, declaring her independence from Britain and proclaiming the equality of all men and women when the rest of the world was bound by rigid class systems and serfdom. But the principles are as old as time. The source is the ancient wisdom, the emerald tablets of thought, the Kabbalion, which is usually goes so wrong. Also, Thoth was called Hermes Trismegistus. I said it right this time, right? Trismegistus. The twice blessed. He also was a man, a teacher, a master of wisdom, who is deified as a god. Because America is still young, flexible, and changing, America's task spiritually is to pioneer new ideas and ground them in experience. How can we change the world? Change the world from the inside out. As above, so below. If you put the two triangles, the triangle that reaches down is the person, I'm sorry, it's so small. This is the sign of humanity, the sign of the soul reaching down to humanity. Humanity reaching up to the soul is the upward pointing. When you put the both together, you form what's been called the Star of David. And in the middle of that star is the heart, the consciousness of enlightened man, or the soul-infused personality. So, as we go into this next section, we change the world by taking the lower to the higher, and love. And so, let us talk about, in meditation, as above, so below. And let's go into the silence. But before we do, is there any questions? Insights? Realizations? All right. So take a breath. Feel your body within its space. Roll your shoulders back and breathe. Breathing in white, vibrant energy, and breathing out that which no longer serves you as the soul. Scan your body for just a moment, and if there's any tightness or discomfort, breathe into it and let it go. And now above your head, see a ball of golden white light. This light represents your soul star, the part of you that is connected to the all that is. And as you focus on the soul, say to yourself after me, I am the soul.
I am the soul.
And also love am I.
And also love am I.
Above all else, I am.
Above all else, I am.
Both will and fixed design.
Both will and fixed design.
My will is now to lift.
My will is now to lift
The lower self
the lower self
into the light divine.
into the light divine.
That light am I.
That light am I.
Therefore, I must descend
Therefore, I must descend
to where the lower self awaits.
to where the lower self awaits.
Awaits my coming.
Awaits my coming.
That which desires to lift.
That which desires to lift.
And that which cries for lifting
And that which cries for lifting.
are now at one.
Are now at one.
Such is my will.
Such is my will.
And with an active will, see yourself as that upward pointed triangle of light, reaching up to the soul star. And see the soul star as the downward pointing triangle of light merging with you. And you become that five-pointed star, enlightened humanity, soul-infused personality. And from this point of higher and lower merging as one, see within the middle of that star a point of light that is anchored in your heart. Breathe into that light, allowing yourself to affirm silently, I love and I care. Breathe. I love and I care. I love and I care. And for a moment, see this light in your heart pulsating, pulsating, allowing the light to grow and grow and grow until it immerses your whole physical self. And from this light, allow yourself to take a moment and connect yourself with the Earth star. So see a line of light come down from you through the earth and connect with the soul star deep in the earth, the part of the soul of the earth that is connected to the all that is. Now bring that light up through your own light and back up into the light of the soul. And from this point of light in the soul, send out a beam of light to all of those within this group, connecting yourselves, high consciousness to high consciousness. And we send this light forth from the group into the earth plane, connecting with all the other sources of love and wisdom on the planet. We see the light and love pouring in from the top of our head, feeding this line or this matrix of light throughout the planet. Feel yourself connected. And while you allow this light to grow and to go out into the earth, deep in your heart, allow yourself to get in touch with your love for America. Align with her soul, her highest purpose, and the principles upon which she was founded. And now with an act of your will, visualize our country being reunited around a common vision of our future, with opportunities for each citizen to contribute their part, however this shows up for you. Now reflect for a few moments on what you personally can do to help our nation in whatever field of work where you can best contribute your skills and gifts. Now imagine all of us in this meditation standing together in the crown of the Statue of Liberty. In the room at the top, where we can look out on the expansive view across the country and see the statue compassionately welcoming people from all around the world. Every border open, arms outstretched, welcome, loving, kind. And we see that our nation is protected and guided. And now see a great light from the star Sirius, the heart of the universe, the heart of God, and see that light surrounding and filling our nation, her people, and our natural environment, guiding, directing, loving. And now see our nation cooperating with other nations to serve their highest good and create greater peace, health, and prosperity for all the people of our planet. feel a great love. Be the love. Allow your whole being to reflect love and compassion, caring for all that is. And now, take another deep breath. Focus your attention back into this place where we are. Your feet firmly on the ground. And slowly wiggle your toes. Feel yourself within the space. And as a way of grounding us back into the physical, would you please take a piece of paper that you got from the clipboard when you came in. Does everyone not have it? Where's the clipboard? Maybe you can share those that don't have. What they all know. Maybe everybody, maybe there wasn't any. So if you could share and say with me together, prayer for our nation. May we as a nation be guided by the divine to rediscover the sacred flame of our national heritage, which so many have given their lives to safeguard. Let the wounds of separation and division be healed by opening our hearts to listen to the truth on all sides, allowing us to find a higher truth that includes us all. May we learn to honor and enjoy our diversity and differences as a people, even as we more deeply touch our fundamental unity. May we as a people undergo a transformation that will draw forth individuals to lead our nation who embody courage, compassion, and a higher vision. May our leaders inspire us, and we so inspire each other with our potential as individuals and as a nation, that a new spirit of forgiveness, caring, and honesty be born in our nation. May we as a united people move with clear, directed purpose to take our place within the community of nations to help build a better future for all humankind. May we as a nation dedicate ourselves to truly live as one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And may God's will be done for our nation as we, the people, align with that will. And so it is. Wow. Did it turn off?